Mike P., I see you there. Mike Paday. There's two Mike P's on here. Chris Westbrook. Lots of Eric's Club members here. Start in just a minute. Looks like the numbers starting to level off a little bit. We're up to 185. Kelly Roberts, maybe it is your name recognition there. They're all excited to hear you today.
Not in a good way, though.
No, it's great.
We've got a big football game coming up Friday night.
It's funny to even be thinking of football. And what I was talking to one of our fellow alums, I think it was last Friday, and I was mentioning the game the prior evening, and they're like, what game? Are they actually playing? Like, well, after 4 postponed games, they finally got to play, and it was a blowout. They won, so that's a good thing. Okay. People are still logging on. Going to give it one more. Well, as soon as we hit the 200 mark and we hit it, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Time is of the essence. First of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Steve Goodman. I'm the current chairman of Eric's Club. Eric's Club is the short name, but it's actually the Eric Hilton Distinguished Alumnus Club. We're an organization that was founded 21 years ago by Dr. Clint Rapole, who's on here with us. And it was named after, of course, Eric Hilton. The purpose of the group is really to support the college, to support them in alumni engagement, student engagement, provide opportunities and inspiration for the college and for its students, and to be a support network. We have about 60 members, and one of the requirements for X Club is that the folks have graduated at least 20 years ago and have achieved some level of success, both in their business as well as in their community. Our members are all over the country and all over the world. We engage with the college and with the students through classroom and through these lectures. We have a busy day ahead. We're going to start with the lecture, and then it's going to be followed by the breakout sessions. For those of you already signed up for I believe you had to sign up in advance, but there's going to be different Eric's Club members serving as panelists. The sessions are entrepreneurship and development, food and beverage, lodging operations, and meetings and events. So that'll be going on. That'll start at 11:30 for a 1-hour period. Our Eric's Club members, the board is going to actually be meeting this afternoon to plan the year ahead. And then our Eric's Club members from around the world will actually be reconvening at 5 p.m. for a virtual happy hour and check in to see how we're all doing in this current pandemic environment. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. We're up to 214 and still climbing. What I would say is, first of all, this is absolute record attendance. We're typically constrained by the size of S104, which is Alumni Hall. So we typically have 100 or 120, 130 people if we really pack the room. So we've almost doubled that already through the miracle of technology. As I mentioned to those who got on early, once we begin the lecture, if you have questions for the speaker, I'll ask that you put them in the chat. I'll try to monitor the chat as we go on, and so that at the end of his lecture, I can go ahead and moderate the questions. Our speaker today is Kelly Roberts. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then you're going to learn a lot more about him and some inspirational comments as he moves forward. First of all, Kelly Roberts is the Chief Administration Officer for Hospitality and Gaming for Landry's. Joined Landry's in 1996. He has 40 years experience in the hospitality industry. And for Landry's, he's responsible for 6 hotels and 5 casinos, totaling 6,000 hotel rooms. He also oversees the relationship with the city of Galveston as their company operates the Galveston Island Convention Center, which is a phenomenal facility. Typically have a conference there every year, and unfortunately this year we had to postpone. He graduated in 1981. We do still see him around as he comes into the classrooms periodically to lecture on gaming topics, as well as mentoring. Before he joined Landry's, he worked for a number of other organizations, both here in the US and the Caribbean. And he also worked for 2 startup companies and has been involved in many openings and takeovers. He's a board member of the Greater Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau, where he's also served as prior treasurer. He lives here in Houston with his wife, Pam, and he has 2 grown children. I asked him when I was talking to him the other day if he had any special things that we can look forward to in his presentation. And he told us that he is going to tell us how to beat the house and win big next time you go visit a casino. So without further ado, I'm going to present Kelly Roberts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today. It's a little strange. I've never done this on the computer before, so I wish we were there in person, but we certainly will make the best go of it. I have a PowerPoint to accompany this, so thank you. Go ahead, next slide. Next slide, please. So here's kind of an outline of what I'm going to discuss today. I'm going to give you kind of a path of how I got to the Hilton College and what it meant to me. I'll give you a brief overview on my career, specifically because it's maybe a little different than some of these past lectures. I'll discuss the casino business in a little bit more detail. And then, unfortunately, 2020 is a terrible year due to COVID. And I thought I would touch on that and how that's impacted our company. And then I'll give you a few lessons I've learned along the way in my career. And then any questions you have. Next slide. There we go. I was asked to come up with a picture of what I looked like when I was at U of H. So I think this picture is me on my 21st birthday. And as you can tell, the hair is definitely a little bit lighter these days. Still have a good head of hair though, which I'm happy about. But that's me, you know, when I was at U of H. Next, please. So how did I get to Hilton College? Well, I think it was kind of fate. I grew up here in Houston, finished middle school here, and my father worked for Exxon for 42 years, his entire career. And we got transferred. He had to move to New York City right as I was starting high school. So we lived in Southwest Connecticut. he worked in the city. So I went to a small high school in Connecticut. So when I was done with high school, I knew I wanted to come back to the South to college. And, you know, back then in high school, you take those aptitude tests and tell you maybe what your interests are, so forth. So mine said I, you know, would be interested in business. I'd be good with numbers. And so I decided to start my college career at SMU in Dallas. And I went there a couple of years and just did not like it at all. You know, all the subjects like economics and marketing, et cetera, just didn't hit home with me. I didn't really have anything to apply them to. And I really was kind of lost, quite frankly, at school. And something had happened to me when I was in high school on a summer family vacation. We were rented a houseboat up in the Finger Lakes in upper state New York near Ithaca, where Cornell is. And during that trip, as we were about to finish our last day, I got seasick. I had inhaled some engine fumes from the cabin and was vastly sick. So we had to postpone our trip, or curtail it, I should say, early. But I was so squeamy that we ended up spending the night in the hotel at Cornell. And I saw the, you know, the students working in the hotel, and it got me interested. It wasn't quite enough to push me there originally, because I did start at SMU, but when things didn't work out for me there, I decided to transfer to the U of H, the hotel school. It was a great experience, a little different in that for me, it was more of a commuter experience. I got a job at the Westin Oaks in the Galleria right when I started school, which really helped me then, because I was able to apply a lot of the things we learned, you know, in the hotel school classes, having some practical experience to go with it. And, you know, I couldn't have been happier. And I said it was fate, because it was probably that houseboat trip and that experience at Cornell that ultimately pushed me to the Hilton College. Next, please. Briefly, about a little bit about each one of my stops along the way. I've been very fortunate. I've never been out of work a day in my life. I've never been terminated or laid off or anything. And I was very fortunate when I graduated in December of '81 to get a job with Hyatt Hotels right out of school. And that's when the Hyatt Regency on Town Lake in Austin opened. It was kind of the start of new hotel building in Austin, and it was extremely successful. I think the first year we were open, we did 91% occupancy, which was way better than anybody else in the market was doing. But that new product, and Hyatt being a great company, you know, it just was extremely successful. In fact, I remember the general manager that opened the hotel, his reward for the successful opening is he eventually got transferred to the Hyatt Regency Maui. And so that was his little reward. Hyatt was a great company, and still is for that matter, one of the best hotel companies in the world. But I started in the purchasing area there. I had done that at the Westin while I was in school, so it was a natural transition. The good thing about doing that in a hotel is you get to work with all of the departments. So I wasn't specialized in food and beverage or the front desk or anything. I kind of touched everything, and I did well there. I only ended up staying about a year because I took a risk, because it was clear to me that despite Hyatt being great company, great training programs, et cetera, it was going to be a bit of a slow time to work my way up the ladder. Just they had a lot of bench strength, and it's just kind of the way it was. So it's really the only time I've ever left a job that there wasn't a specific reason, either personally or for the company. But I took a chance and I moved to Dallas and went to work for Wyndham Hotels. Wyndham was a brand new startup company at the time, a big real estate developer in Dallas named Trammell Crow. You still may see signs for Beth the Crow Company today. But he started this hotel company. We opened a 540 room hotel in the Dallas Market Center. So it was an upscale kind of full service luxury hotel. And that was the first one. Kind of got in on the ground floor there, worked my way into the accounting department and worked my way up from there. We also opened a hotel in Austin. We opened 2 in Houston. We got the management contract of a new hotel, a big hotel in the Caribbean that opened that if anybody's ever been to the Bahamas, it sits where the Baha Mar Casino does now. It's been torn down and redeveloped, but at the time it was the flagship hotel in the Caribbean called the Cable Beach Hotel. But the beauty of being with a company that didn't have a lot of bench strength is I was able to work my way up pretty quickly and ended up, involved in opening of all of those hotels. I was assistant controller of the original hotel in Dallas, and I got sent to the Bahamas. That turned out it was supposed to be a 3-week project, and it turned into about an 18-month project. In the Bahamas, and it's still true today, but the Bahamian government wants their citizens, obviously, to be working. And so it's very hard to get a work permit to go work there. So this big 700-room new hotel that opened, we only had 3 work permits for the general manager, the food and beverage manager, and the controller of the hotel. And as a result of that, there was some real serious problems with the opening. And there was all these tour companies based in the Northeast that used to sell vacations, mainly to the Canadians and people in the Northeast, because the big season in the Bahamas is in the winter when it's so cold up north. And they typically sell the rooms to the vacationers, and then they are to pay the hotel. They pay with a voucher. So the guest shows up with a voucher, presents it at check-in, and that covers their stay. And then the hotel is supposed to bill the travel company to get repaid. Well, that was a nightmare and a mess. So I got sent down there. I went in incognito as a tourist because I didn't have a work permit. And a 3-week project turned into 18 months before we got everything sorted out. And so that was my first experience. In 1985, and I went back in Dallas with the company, and I got transferred to Washington, D.C. because we got a management contract of a hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. So I was really the only company employee that was transferred there. And so I was, I guess, in a way, kind of the eyes and ears for the company about what was really going on at that hotel. It hadn't done well, and the owner of the hotel decided to make a change and bring in a new management company. And that was us at Wyndham. While I was there, I was the controller, and I caught the food and beverage manager stealing and a couple of other employees. And ultimately, it got the general manager fired. And so I became the interim general manager. So my background had primarily been in finance up to that point. But until we replaced the general manager, which was about 6 months later, I got my first taste of running a property on an interim basis. And that was, eye-opening for me. After we got the hotel stabilized, about that time, Trammell Crow started selling all his premier hotels, and the company eventually took a different direction and went to more of a limited service model, which to me meant fewer opportunities. And so I decided it was time to move on at that point. Next slide, please. There was a fairly new Caribbean management company that was started by the original president of Wyndham Hotels, who I knew, and I decided to join that organization. It was obviously a familiar management team to me. To me, the downside of joining is I went from the slick Washington, D.C. to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Nothing wrong with Oklahoma. The people were fabulous there. But it was kind of depressing at the time because Oklahoma is very oil heavy like Texas is. And it was kind of in an oil recession and a lot of people were struggling there. But I took the chance and went there for about a year. And then I got transferred to the corporate office in Fort Worth. And while I was there, something happened to me that, well, it didn't happen to me, but I was peripherally involved in something that led me to resign from that company overnight. And I'm going to talk more about that later. But I quit that job overnight, no notice. My wife was pregnant with our first child, but it was an ethical decision. And I was very fortunate to find another job like 2 days later. There was a management company in Dallas that they didn't own any hotels, but they only managed properties called Metro. And I went to work for them at their flagship property and was there in Dallas, back in Dallas for a couple of years. And then they got a management contract of a hotel in Baltimore, Maryland, a big hotel, convention hotel. So I took that opportunity to move to Baltimore. So it's kind of my second stint in Maryland, because I lived in Maryland when I was working in Washington, D.C. And I was there for a couple of years, but at that time, the management company, the owner of the management company, decided he wanted to get out of the hotel business. And so he was selling all of his hotel contracts to another company. And I didn't really like that. And so I took the chance to leave that company as well. Next slide, please. At that time, I had 2 small children that were just about starting school. And I decided it was time to come back home to Houston. My wife's mother owns an independent meeting planning business, and my wife wanted to try working with her, which that's another lesson. Sometimes family don't work well together. That experiment didn't work, but by moving home, she could work with her. And I found an opportunity with the Woodlands Corporation. One of the other Eric's Club members, I'm not sure if he's on today, Al Gallo, was a friend of mine while I was at U of H. And so I had reached out to Al to see if he knew anything in the Houston area. And the Woodlands Corporation actually was managing the San Luis Hotel in Galveston, Texas at the time. George Mitchell was the original developer of the San Luis. And so the Woodlands Corp, which was owned by Mitchell Energy and George, was running that hotel. So I took the chance to move home and took that job in Galveston, Texas. Well, I started there, I think, in February of '95. And about 6 weeks after I started, they told me the hotel was for sale. And so that was a little disconcerting, but one of the best things that happened to me in my career came out of that. And that was that Tillman Fertitta, who is the sole owner of Landry's and the chairman of the Board of Regents at University of Houston, which most of you or many of you may know, was the one who bought the hotel. And so I had the opportunity either to stay with the Woodlands or go to work for Tillman. And I decided to go to work for Tillman. And that's turned out to be a blessing for me because I've not jumped around or had to leave my company since. So I've been there, as you can see, since '96, now over 20 years. And it's been fantastic. I stayed at the San Luis where I was based with Tillman when he first bought the property, spent a bunch of money renovating it, and he really turned it into the hotel it is today, which is a full service resort with a great spa. He helped improve the rooms, added some better restaurants, and it's a great place. I'm sure some of you have been there, but I was based there for several years and then eventually moved up to the corporate office here in Houston, where I still am. At the time, we had the San Luis, and we had another hotel there that was an independent hotel that he bought at the same time as the San Luis, and we converted that into a Hilton resort. And then a couple of years later, we bought the Holiday Inn on the other side. So we really have a 31-acre complex there now with 3 hotels. The San Luis also has a condominium building attached. So we rent some of those rooms and we manage the condo. Then we have an IHOP restaurant that he put in there. There's a Landry's freestanding restaurant, a Rainforest Cafe. And then, as Steve mentioned, we made a deal with the city of Galveston in 2003, and we built what is now the Galveston Island Convention Center on our property, and we run it for the city in a public-private partnership. So it's a great setup there. There's almost 700 hotel rooms, 2 brands, one 4-diamond independent, and the convention center with the restaurant. So that was Tillman's hotel operation at the time. And since then, if many of you have been to the Kemah Boardwalk, you may have noticed we have a little 52-room hotel there called the Boardwalk Inn that was built, and we run that. And then back around 2004, he bought what was a closed, shuttered office building that had originally been owned by the Port of Houston. It's right across from Minute Maid Park now. And on that block, we renovated the building into a hotel. And then he built Vic and Anthony's Steakhouse, which is one of our signature restaurants on that property. We operated the hotel as an independent hotel for a few years. It was called Inn at the Ballpark. And it had kind of a baseball theme to it. But we really we were successful, but not as successful as we needed to be. And he took my suggestion, and we decided to put a franchise on the property, and we made a deal with Westin. So it's the Westin Houston Downtown Hotel. So that became our next hotel operation. In between all of you can cars, 1999, Tillman Rolls Royce automobile dealership here in Houston. And he moved it, and it sits right next to our corporate office on the West Loop now. But at the time, we had a few hotels and a bunch of restaurants. And for some reason, he decided I needed to oversee the Rolls dealership. So I had to learn the car business, which was interesting. The most important lesson that I learned, though, was never drive home a Bentley to your house, because I did that one time and my wife almost backed into the car. That probably would have been about a $30,000 repair mistake. So I just look at them now. I don't take any of them home anymore. Early 2005, we got into the casino business, and I'm going to touch on that next. But before we do that, I wanted to mention one other hotel that we have in our portfolio, and I'm actually sitting on top of it right now in my office. We have the Post Oak Hotel, which is on the West Loop. It's a project that no real estate developer who is return on investment focused would have ever built. It just doesn't make any sense because we spent about $400 million building it. And so we'll never get a decent return in the short run on it. But Tillman wanted to do it because Houston really doesn't have a great luxury hotel, and he figures this will be in his family for generations. So we opened this property in early 2018. So it's been open 2.5 years now. And 2 years ago, we got the AAA 5-diamond rating. There are very few properties that have that. And then about 8 weeks ago, we got the mobile 5-star rating. So we're one of only 2 hotels in the state of Texas that have those designations. And our spa that we built here, which is fabulous, also is a 5-star spa. So that's our latest hotel project, and it's fantastic. If any of you haven't been by here, come by and take a look at it because it is gorgeous property. Okay, next, please. Golden Nugget. So 2005, we got into the gaming business. It was kind of a natural progression at the time. I think Landry's restaurants, there were probably about 400 restaurants. We were up to I guess 5 hotels at the time. Tillman's relatives have been in the gambling business for years in Las Vegas. They're the Stations Casino, kind of local operator, but he wanted to get into the gaming business. And so our first venture was downtown Las Vegas. So we bought the Golden Nugget and the trademark. It's an old historic brand, and then we've kept it. So as you can see by this slide, we have 5 Golden Nugget casinos today: Las Vegas, Laughlin, Nevada, Lake Charles, Louisiana, Atlantic City, New Jersey, and Biloxi, Mississippi. And we also have an online gaming business in New Jersey, which was the first state in the United States to legalize it. And so there's online poker, which we do not operate because it's hard to make money at that, but there's an online casino component with slots or tables. You're just playing on your computer instead of going to a physical property. The casinos, 5,200 hotel rooms, and we have about 6,000 slot machines, 240 table games, blackjack, craps, roulette, etc. And then within those 5 properties, we have 40 restaurants. So they're big. We own the real estate in Las Vegas, Laughlin, and Atlantic City. In Biloxi and Lake Charles, we actually lease our land from the government. So that's kind of our operation. Next slide, please. As we got into gaming, this was kind of our strategy. We wanted to grow, which we did because we originally just had the Las Vegas property. So we've added casinos, but looking for good markets to go put some more Golden Nuggets in. Most of the properties we bought, except for Lake Charles, which I've come to, but the others we bought, they were all maybe not in the best of shape. So doing significant renovations to improve them drastically was part of our strategy. Given that we're a restaurant company now with close to 600 locations and numerous concepts, we thought we'd put our restaurant brands in the casinos, which has been very successful. The Landry's Restaurants has a loyalty program called the Landry Select Club. We actually consulted with somebody at U of H when we did that years and years ago. But it's a program that basically the easiest way to describe it is you get a 10% discount on all of your food and beverage. And when you hit a $250, you get a $25 reward. So that's the kind of the way it works. But we have 3 million members now, I think, close to 3 million. And then the Golden Nuggets, it has its own loyalty program called the 24 Karat Club. And so we cross market those two. We're working slowly on integrating both programs to one program. So if you are a Landry Select Club member because you go to Saltgrass or Landry's or Rainforest Cafe or Morton's Steakhouse and you get rewards, at some point you'll be able to take your rewards you've earned and go to one of our Golden Nugget casinos and redeem it for hotel stays. And conversely, and we're already doing this, if you're a Golden Nugget customer and you gamble and you earn points gambling, you can take your points with you to any Landry's restaurant in the United States and redeem them. So it's one way for us to try to differentiate ourselves from other gaming companies because we have the power of those 600 restaurants spread out all over the country. So for example, if you go to Las Vegas and you play, and let's say you earn $400 of comps and you live in Chicago, you can go back to Chicago and you can go to the Mortons of Chicago and redeem your comps there, as opposed to redeeming them in the casino on that trip or coming back for another trip. So that's a big part of our strategy. The online gaming in New Jersey is a huge opportunity. More and more states are considering sports wagering online and even online casino. And so that's a big part of our strategy. In fact, we are in the process of spinning out this online business and taking it public. So that's exciting and will help us grow faster. Next slide. Here's I've got some pictures now. So this is the Golden Nugget Las Vegas, what it looks like there on the left, and then Laughlin up to the right. Laughlin, Nevada is about 90 miles from Las Vegas on the Colorado River. There's not much there other than a string of casinos. So it's more of a secondary market. It doesn't have the luxury that Las Vegas does. In fact, you can get a hotel room in Laughlin if you're paying cash, probably for anywhere from $20 to $40. So it's more of a discount market. That's not necessarily true on the Las Vegas Strip. Next slide, please. So Las Vegas, we're in downtown. This property, if any of you have ever seen any old James Bond movies, I don't remember which one it was, but there was one with a car chase scene. It was probably back in the 70s that they went right down Fremont Street, and the Golden Nugget is seen there. That street is no longer a driving street. It's a pedestrian tourist attraction now, but the Golden Nugget casino has been there for 70 years now. But back in the late 70s, Steve Wynn, who is kind of the godfather of the new Las Vegas, bought the Golden Nugget. It was his first property. He added hotel rooms and other amenities to it and made it more of a resort. It had fallen in a little disarray when we bought it in 2005, but it's a big property. It's got 2,419 hotel rooms. You know, the largest hotel in Houston's 1,000 rooms, as a giving you perspective. But the 2,419 is not that large compared to some other properties on the Strip. So we're kind of a medium-sized property. That's just Las Vegas. We have almost 1,000 slot machines and a bunch of table games. Laughlin on the Colorado River, it's the smallest property in the market. It only has 300 hotel rooms, but it's very successful for its size. We were very pleased to have that as well. Next, please. Being in downtown Las Vegas creates some challenges for renovations. One of the things that really was lame at the Golden Nugget before we bought it was their swimming pool. It was almost like more like a wading pool. It was right in the middle of the property. The property's landlocked on all sides by streets, so you really couldn't build a resort pool there. So Tillman, being the very creative person he is, came up with the idea of building a 3-level swimming pool. So if you notice on the bottom level there, you can see a slide kind of to the left center of the screen. So you actually climb up to the 3rd level and you take a slide right down into the pool. And if you notice more to the right, you can see a shark. So you actually go through a tube in a shark tank. And it's very popular. The 2nd level and the 3rd level are mainly where the cabanas are. And then down on the 1st level, you have all your chairs. But this was a $30 million swimming pool to build this. But no way to do it to make it luxurious other than go up because we're landlocked. Next slide. Talk about Lake Charles for a second. Lake Charles, we actually bought this property when it was under construction, before it had opened. There's a competing casino next door that had been the LeBurge, that's been there a long time. Well, their parent company was merging with the company that was building this property, and they had to sell one of them to get their merger approved with the FTC. So we took advantage of that and bought this construction site, and were able to, brand the property the way we wanted, make it a Golden Nugget, put restaurants in. We bought it right at the right time before the construction had gotten too far. So this opened as a new property in 2016. Has almost 1,100 hotel rooms, a lot of slots and table, has a golf course. The property next door has one, so we almost felt like we needed one. Has a fabulous pool, and it has 11 of our restaurant brands. This is our most successful casino out of all 5 by far. And unfortunately, they've had a little challenge the last 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Hurricane Laura ripped right through Lake Charles and caused a significant amount of damage. We were closed for about 8 or 9 days. We got reopened. Everything's starting to pick back up. We're doing good. And then last week, Hurricane Delta paid us a visit. It wasn't nearly as bad because it was just slightly east of us is where the center hit. But this property has been challenged with 2 hurricanes in the last 6 weeks. We reopened yesterday, so we were closed about 4 days for that storm. But this is a fabulous property. Anybody who hasn't been there, it's worth visiting. Next slide. Here's a picture of what it looks like outdoors, outside. Here's the swimming pool. It's a great pool. It has 35 cabanas. Up at the top, more of the top of the screen, you can see kind of a secondary water. That's a lazy river. So this is a focus of the property, especially on weekends when the weather's great. Been a little more challenging with COVID though, which we'll come back to in a second. Here's a picture kind of our golf course. You can see the bridge over the lake in the background. Next. Our other properties, Biloxi, Mississippi. We bought a casino that was called an Isle of Capri and renovated into a Golden Nugget. It's right on the water, has 700 rooms, nice property. And then Atlantic City. This property originally was developed by Hilton. So Baron Hilton was doing this property and ran into a problem with the Gaming Commission in New Jersey and wasn't able to get a gaming license. He sold it to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's company had 3 casinos in New Jersey at one point. He went bankrupt either once or twice. And this property was really struggling when we bought it. It was losing about $14 million a year when we bought it. So it was appraised on the tax rolls at 690 million, and we bought it for 30 million, if that tells you anything. But it's got 700 rooms, a lot of slots, a lot of tables. Next. Here's a picture of what Biloxi looks like now on the outside. Next. And there's Atlantic City. You can see the water because it's right on close to the beach. We're in what's called the Marina District, so we're not right on the beach like some of the properties are, but we're very close. Next. I mentioned iGaming. We have been the iGaming operator of the year the last, 4 years, 5 years. We've got a guy from France who had online gaming's been legal in Europe for years and years. So this guy was running a French company, and we hired him, and we think he's the best in the industry. One of the things he put in here, as you can see there, it says live dealer. So if you're online and you're playing, if any of you know how to play blackjack, it's a card game where you're playing against the dealer. If you're just playing online, you see the computer deal you a hand, deal itself a hand, and you bet and see what happens. Not as exciting as being there in person. So we actually created a studio within the Golden Nugget Atlantic City with TV cameras, et cetera, that are tied to our gaming site. And we actually have live dealers dealing to you while you're playing online. And I think it quadrupled the amount of table game online play we had. So that's an example of how creative this guy is. Now everybody's trying to do this. So this is very successful. And as I mentioned, it's about to spin off and go public. And we hope to be in numerous states in the near future. We already have a deal in Pennsylvania. We have one in Michigan. We're working on one in Illinois. And I guess we're waiting for Texas, and maybe California would be the other two that we'd like to eventually be in. Next. Casino renovations. I mentioned to you that one of our strategies when we bought these properties to renovate them. So these next couple of slides are going to show you exactly how dramatically different it was to the consumer. So the slide, this is Vegas downtown. So that's what it looked like on the left before we bought it. Right. Here's another site. You can see it wasn't really lit up at night. That where it said on the left, on the right side, on the left, that taller tower, we added that tower after we bought it, like 6 years later. So it only had 1,900 rooms when we bought it, but we were successful enough that we added 500 more rooms. So that's the new tower we built a few years back. Next. Atlantic City, sort of the same thing, kind of almost looked like a prison, quite honestly, before. And now you can see what it looks like. That on the building there, where it shows the blue and the streaks there, that's actually a gigantic, it's a sign, and we can change the messaging there on the building now, which is kind of cool. Next. Here's the inside. You can see what it looked like there on the left and what it looks like now. Very colorful, a lot of color, a lot of red, a lot of gamblers like red, especially some of our Asian gamblers. Here's the front desk area, what it looked like. Next. This is that was VIP check-in for the big casino players there on the left. That's what it looks like now. Next. Biloxi, that was the Isle of Capri, kind of tropical theme there. And now you can see what it looks like, kind of more like some of our other properties. So starting to build a trend of what the brand really looks like. That was their swimming pool. It was up on like the 5th level of the hotel. It looked like more like a hot tub. You can see we built a big resort pool there. Next. That was their steakhouse, and we put one of our brands in, Morton's. Next. Poker room, again, lighting, carpet, etc. Guest rooms, with the more modern guest room look. Renovated all of the rooms at all of our properties when we took over. Next. Okay, 2020, a year we'd all like to forget. COVID. So we operate about 600 or so restaurants. We've got all the hotels I mentioned. We've got the 5 casinos. How did COVID impact us? Well, the first thing that happened is, let me say this. When I joined Tillman in 1996, Landry's was doing about 50 million a year in revenue. And last year we did 3.5 billion. So that shows you the growth we've had, which has come mainly from acquisitions, the casinos and numerous restaurant chains. But at one point during COVID in March, we had lost 95% of our revenue. And our restaurants, many of them started doing takeout only as allowed. Over time, that's changed. Certainly here in Texas, when Texas got indoor dining back, many of our other jurisdictions, we probably closed 30 or 35 locations because maybe they were marginal locations that we couldn't renegotiate a deal with our landlord, so they weren't going to be good at the reduced revenue and reduced cost structure. But the majority of them, we tried to do takeout. As indoor dining became available, we started doing it. We have a bunch of restaurants in California, and there's only outdoor dining allowed right now, still in California. We have a bunch of huge restaurants in New York City, and we just got indoor dining back finally in New York City 2 weeks ago. It's not going that great so far because there are not many people in the city. A lot of people working from home. There are no tourists there. Nobody wants to go to New York and quarantine. So the restaurant side is improving every day, but it's a long way to go from where it was, pre-March, when we had to start shutting down and doing takeout only. Casinos, we operate with a privileged gaming license in each jurisdiction that we have. And so the gaming commission or board or whatever they're called in each market dictates to us when we're open and when we're closed. So, for example, when the hurricane came last week in Lake Charles, the casino was mandated to close on Thursday because the storm was going to hit Friday night. And they just allowed us to reopen yesterday, finally. So that was certainly true with COVID, is the concern about all these people huddled together, et cetera. So all of our casinos closed between like March 10th and March 16th, which was devastating for us because, we make a lot of money out of those 5 properties. So overall, the company, and I say this because Tillman said it on TV before. So we have roughly 60,000 employees. And at one point back in late March, we had 45,000 of our employees had been furloughed. A lot of casino people, a lot of restaurant people, some managers, we lost a good chunk of our company for a while. Now, over time, as things have improved, we have added a lot of those people back, but we definitely don't have all the same. We're not operating today the same way we did pre-COVID. I don't think in the restaurant side, certainly in the corporate side, and even in the casino side. So we have reduced our typical cost structure significantly because we know our revenue is down. And our goal is to try to make about as much money with 80% of the revenue and make 100% of what we were making before, which is successful some of the time, sometimes it isn't. But the casinos were closed March, half of March, all of April, most of May. Finally, Biloxi and Louisiana and Mississippi were the first two markets to allow us to reopen. So we reopened both of those properties back in May, and they both have been doing fantastic, except for the storms in Lake Charles, of course. But we're operating with, COVID protocols. Some of it is mandated by gaming. You have to wear masks. Like at a blackjack table where normally you'd have 5 chairs, you can only have 3. You can have every other slot machine open, so you don't have people sitting right next to each other. You got hand sanitizer everywhere. We do temperature checks at some of our casinos. So we're doing the best we can to operate, given the necessary protocols to be able to do it. And we haven't had any significant issue from a customer perspective that we're aware of since we reopened. We've had some staff, incidences, and I think that's a lot of that has come from people socializing after their work shift, but we've not had to close any of our casinos since they reopened. Las Vegas and Laughlin, Nevada were approved to open in June, and then New Jersey was the last state to allow us to open, and we opened right before 4th of July. So all 5 of our properties are opening. They're still on protocol. None of them are achieving the results they were achieving pre-COVID, but they're actually doing fairly well, except for Las Vegas. There's so many hotel rooms in Las Vegas between all the strip properties, downtown, out in the suburbs. There's just too much. Too much inventory because there's no meetings, there's no entertainment because of COVID. We're running at the Golden Nugget probably 35% hotel occupancy, whereas we were running 90 pre-COVID. So it's just going to be a very slow comeback for Las Vegas. You really need to get the meetings back is the key thing, because the convention business drives so much of the occupancy in Las Vegas. So that's a little bit about COVID. We'll be happy when 2020 is behind us. Next, please. Here's a few lessons that I've learned over the years. The first one is it's easy to get ahead in your career. You just have to outwork everybody. You have to put in the diligence. And if you outwork everybody and you do things smartly, I found that it was very easy to keep moving up the ladder if you're willing to make the personal sacrifices to do it. And, it started for me back when I decided to leave the Hyatt, my first school. I have worked my way up the ladder pretty easily if you just put in the effort. The next one says your integrity is everything. So now I want to come back to what happened to me when I was at that Savoy Resorts. So I moved to the corporate office and was involved in corporate accounting and was doing the accounting there. And I discovered that the owners of this company were paying for travel expenses to visit their casinos in the Caribbean by having the travel company they dealt with just not pay back some of the hotels for billings that were owed to the hotels. If the company had owned the hotels completely, it wouldn't have necessarily been an issue. But we didn't. We were managing those hotels. So in essence, you can say we were creating a fraud for the owners of those hotels by, using their funds to pay for our corporate travel. And I discovered this, and I didn't want any part of it, because to me, if you maintain your reputation, it goes back to number one. You can always advance. Your integrity is all you have. And so that's why, despite having not much money, having my wife was pregnant with our first, I felt like my integrity was in jeopardy and I needed to leave that company. And I did so immediately. And eventually, I think a couple of years later, they went out of business. And I don't think anybody went to prison, although I know for a fact that the principals of that company can't go back to Jamaica for sure. So anyway, that was my integrity lesson. The other thing that I think is really important is you got to love what you do. If you're not happy in your job or your career, if you may fool yourself for a brief time saying you can make money and I'm making money so I can put up with it, that's okay. That's a short-term solution. You've got to really love what you do. And once I got in, like I said, in my case, once I got to the Hilton College, was working and could apply what I was learning, I fell in love with the hotel business and eventually the casino business, because if you love it, it's not a chore to come to work and do the best you can every day. The other thing, and I've worked for companies that were management companies that managed hotels for owners. To me, having an owner who's also the operator is a much better way to do business. That's not to say you can't be successful working for a management company, but as an example, when I was at the Metro Hotels, we managed the conference center in Dallas for the owners. We knew they needed to spend money on renovating the meeting space for us to keep being successful, but the owners weren't interested in spending any capital. And it made it very difficult for us to operate. If the owner and the operator are always going to be in sync if it's the same. So that's like the case here at Landry's. Tillman will spend money to improve the customer experience no matter what. And he doesn't let finances get in the way of his reputation. And I found that, that's a better model, and it's certainly been better for me to have an owner operator. Next. Okay, Steve said, I'm going to teach you how to beat the house in the casino. Okay, you can do it. It's possible, but you better be lucky, because those big, huge casinos did not get built by accident. They have math on their side, whether you're playing a slot machine or a table game. Every game in the house is not rigged, but it's shift shaded so that the casino has a huge advantage. But if people didn't win, they wouldn't keep coming back. So we have lots of winners. My best winning story is we had one person come into the Golden Nugget Las Vegas one time with $10,000, and he sat down at a blackjack table and he started betting two hands at a time at $200 a hand. 6 hours later, he walked away with $1.4 million. It was a hot streak like I've never seen before. There are lots of players on the strip who've won millions at a time for the casino, but to start with only 10,000 and to turn it into 1.4 million is just ridiculous. And this guy could do no wrong. He would be playing and take cards when he shouldn't and not take cards when he should, but it's possible. You just need to be really lucky. The other thing, if you're a slot player, do not play penny slot machines. That's the new trend. Each slot machine has a denomination. So you can play dollars, $5, $25 slots, quarter, nickel, and penny. Well, pennies are by far the worst odds. The house keeps about 12 cents for every dollar bet on a penny machine, whereas on a dollar machine, it's only about 4 cents. So if you are going to play, figure out how to play good strategy and play the right device. So that's my advice. Next. And that's all I have for you today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. It's amazing the growth of that company since you started there. I mean, from 50 million to, I think you said $3.5 billion in revenue.
One guy owns it all.
And
by the way, he also owns the Houston Rockets.
And that is actually the first of, I've got a couple questions written down here. The first question is, with working for somebody like Tillman Fertitta, who's willing to spend $30 million on a Las Vegas swimming pool, I mean, what kind of experience is that working for somebody like that?
Well, I can tell you that every day is different. Today, we're going to buy this property. Tomorrow, we're not. We're going to do this instead. It's great because there is no mundane part. And it comes back to the love what you do. At least coming to work here for Tillman, you never really know where we're going. But one thing's for sure, we're going. So I've worked for him since 1996. In that time, he's only sold one asset. And that asset was a restaurant chain called Joe's Crab Shack, casual seafood company. Back, I think it was 2010, he decided we needed to be more in upscale dining. And so we bought McCormick and Schmick's, Chart House, Morton's, and more upscale brands. And we sold that chain. Well, ironically, about 3 years ago, it was in bankruptcy and we bought it back out of bankruptcy. So technically, he's never sold anything. He's only acquired things. So there's all the part of what I do, in addition to, being involved with our current properties, is we look at deals all the time. I think I'm looking at 3 casino deals right now. And who knows whether they're going to happen or not, but that's the exciting thing. There's always something new working for Tillman.
Okay. Well, one of the questions is, you mentioned that Lake Charles Casino was the most profitable. What is it about that brings that profitability? And maybe also a related question possibly is to what degree do innovations really drive growth?
So certainly some of our properties are smaller than others, Laughlin being the smallest, but even Biloxi and Atlantic City are about the same size. But the thing about that Lake Charles has that makes it so successful is in Louisiana, there are only 15 riverboat gaming licenses that were approved in their charter. So MGM could not come in right now and say, gee, Lake Charles, look at how busy that market is. I'm going to go put a big casino there. They can't, because it's a limited number of licenses unless there's a voter approval to expand gaming. And so therefore, we're really only competing with the property next door to us. And then there's Delta Downs, which is a racetrack and slot house that competes a little for slot business. But you've got the beauty of 6 million people 2 hours away. So the Houston market helps drive profitability, our property, as well as the fact that there's limited competition. As far as innovation goes, 100%. We're looking at things all the time. And I mentioned the loyalty programs. They've been very successful separately, but we see an opportunity by combining them. You've seen some of the slides. You've seen how investment is important. But we have a team of people that speak weekly, and we look at trying to find new ways to make things better for the customer, easier for the customer, and an overall better experience. So we never sit by status quo. We pour money back into our properties. A lot of it is technology related.
A couple of related questions. When you take a look at innovations, and then you talked about the online casinos and actually having the live dealers, to what extent, when the pandemic hit and you had to close your casinos, to what kind of impact did that have on the online casinos? Was that able to pick up a good bit of the slack, or is that really a different player, a different audience?
Well, it's interesting. A couple of things. Number one, this is true pre-pandemic. If because our online business operates off of our casino license, the brick and mortar casino license there, if you're an online player, and even if you don't play in person, if you win money, or you put up money and then you don't lose it, or if you win, whatever, when you're ready to withdraw money, you have the ability to come into the casino and go up to the casino cage and take cash out, as opposed to if you put money up via credit card, getting reimbursed, credited on your credit card. So that ability sort of intertwines the two a little bit, and we find a lot of players do that. So they may play a little bit online and also in the brick and mortar, or conversely. But we did see a spike, no question about it, in the online piece when the pandemic hit and people couldn't play. So I think our cross utilization between the online and the brick and mortar went way up, and it's been very helpful, and it really hasn't diminished at all since the brick and mortar casinos reopened.
Okay. And I've got a couple other questions, maybe take it at a minute apiece. One person reported that they saw that the Houston Chronicle had reported that the Post Oak Hotel employees didn't lose any of their health insurance. And how was this organization, especially with it's privately owned by one individual, able to really support its employees?
So say that again about the health insurance.
That the employees of the Post Oak Hotel were able to maintain their health insurance.
Oh, gotcha. So one of the decisions that we had to make when we started furloughing people is, how are we going to treat our employees? Obviously, we couldn't. First thing we did is we paid everybody 2 weeks if they got furloughed. But we decided that health insurance was a critical thing for them. And therefore, even if you weren't getting hours, the company decided to pay 100% of your health insurance. Like most companies, we don't pay 100% of the insurance normally. So the employees pay a portion and the company pays some. But due to the hardship it created for our employees, we decided to cover their health insurance. The other thing that's been done is not all managers came back at full salary initially when they did come back to work, but the company continued, because anybody that was not receiving either all of their hours they were before, if they were hourly, or all of their salary, we continue to pay their insurance. And that's true through today as we speak. So that was just something that we tried to do for our folks that we thought was the right thing to do.
Excellent. And one final question with about 30 seconds to go. It's an important question you could probably spend hours on, is what is your recommendation for somebody who's soon to be graduating and looking at the job market and opportunities? Any special advice?
Well, that's a toughie because, we're not in normal times right now. When I got out, was very fortunate that there was kind of a hotel building boom back in the 80s, and it was much easier, to find something today. But I'd say, work all your contacts. If some of your fellow students may know, employers, or may be working somewhere, you've just got to try to do the best you can networking, and just be very persistent, because unfortunately it's really tough out there right now as companies are trying to recover from this situation. I wish I could hold up something and say we've got 4,000 jobs open, come say, but it's tough right now.
Okay. Well, On behalf of Eric's Club, I want to thank you. I want to thank the students, the faculty, fellow Eric's Club members. Great presentation. We really enjoyed hearing from you. Thank you, and I hope to see the students in the breakout sessions, and look forward to you joining us in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.